Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over a decade, we've delivered weekly episodes filled with epic tech support stories, troubleshooting insights, discussions about managing clients and businesses, and interviews with industry colleagues and vendors, all tailored for our pro listeners. We also offer exclusive content through Patreon. This private podcast feed is designed specifically for IT professionals, providing valuable advice and guidance on tackling the more complex aspects of running your practice, working with clients and employees, and managing device fleets. With a modest monthly contribution, you'll gain access to a wealth of advanced Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a community driven by a shared passion for Apple technology. Visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support to learn more.
Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free thanks to the support of our incredible community. We extend a special thank you to our VIP Premier partners: Attrition, the leading Apple device management platform, Tidbits Content Network, Watchman Monitoring, Cirrus Partners, Electrona, the makers of Patch, and our newest VIP partner, Scout IT. We truly appreciate our VIP supporters and all of our patrons for making this show possible. Thank you.
And now, on to the show.
Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power. We're happy to have everybody listening, and we want to tease a quick topic that will be coming soon, Patreon episode, where we're going to delve more into self-hosted AI and just this AI bot topic. But Jerry, you had some recent experience with this. Meanwhile, it's blowing up on the internet. So what's going on?
Yeah, the things that have been most recently blowing up on the internet are people installing their own locally based AIs like Claudebot. But that stuff is it's the Wild West, where anything you put into Claudebot just goes out into the ether, and there's no guardrails on that, as is most of the AI. But I was recently approached by a client, and she said, should I sign up for Gemini or should I sign up for ChatGPT? And I said, what are you trying to do? They have a whole series of medically based academic writings that they want to refresh before they republish or redistribute or sell again. And I told her that anything that you try to push out through a regular ChatGPT or Gemini or you name it, it's just out there. So you don't want to do that. But let me look into what we can do for you with something that's based locally. So we would need a little computer to run on your network and see if we can do editing there. Because I think all she wants to do, or the intention here, is to just punch it up. Maybe rephrase stuff, maybe insert stuff, but just make everything flow and use it as an academic tool, but not give your content away. In our next Patreon, we'll discuss what I did and what I needed. And it was free. Most of it was free, except for the computer. So that's pretty cool. So if you haven't entertained the idea of being a Patreon subscriber, this might be a good opportunity, because I'm certainly getting paid for what I'm doing here. And it's just another offering that we can present to our clients that, yes, we can do this for you. If you're concerned about privacy and you want to still have some of the benefits of just writing email and you don't want to use Apple's solution, you can have your own locally based AI client and you can get to it on your network. And it's been working great. I've been testing it out all week and I'm going to deliver it on Friday.
Nice. I'm just happy to hear that you're charging, Jerry. That's good news.
Yeah, for once in a while. When people give me work, Sam, I charge them typically.
Nice. That sounds like a very fun project. I'm very curious about that. When all this stuff started happening, like you mentioned with Claudebot, and people were, I heard stories, suddenly the Mac Mini is in demand because everybody's trying to buy a Mac Mini to run Claudebot to be able to let their AI work for them. And it checks in the morning and says, hey, good morning, I did all this work for you overnight and whatever. And then in order for it to work without you prompting it, in order for it to run off and do things for you, it needs all your credentials to everything. What could go wrong? But I thought that would be interesting to explore this whole, there's a social network that's all for AI, or a Reddit for AI bots or something. And they're learning from each other. But that also means that your bot going to this social network could reading instructions from someone else's bot that's going to infect your bot or get your bot to do something nefarious on their behalf, or to do whatever, you leak your credentials. It's like you said, it's the Wild West. So It's very interesting, but it's also very concerning. And the way you got into it is much more straightforward. The opposite of that. It's self-contained. It's locally hosted. It doesn't go out to the internet. You're going to give it text input and it's going to give you text output. Couldn't be simpler. But it's interesting to me, too, that we're now back in this world of considering on-premises versus cloud hosted. It just seems like it's the age-old question. Everyone from Hillary Clinton to your last client was considering, do I want a server in my basement? And that sounded sketchy when she was criticized for it. What are you doing running your own email? No one does it. And it's like, what did you have to hide? Was the implication? I don't know. So but to me, it's also, that's besides the point. The thing is, do I want the responsibility for doing this correctly? I'm self-hosting an AI model in my basement, so to speak, on my Mac Mini. I know how to secure a Mac Mini pretty well, I guess. I would assume, that. And if like you're saying, you query it through an app that presumably plugs into that model locally somehow. You're not querying a website. Yeah,
it's just served up through
a
web UI. Yeah. So you set your own domain name if you want, or just through the IP address, and you're connecting to the Mac Mini, essentially.
And you could save that as a web app on your home screen or whatever. So you could literally, the client, for all they're concerned, it would just be like an app. You just tap on it, and now you're on this web interface that's technically locally hosted. Maybe you make it accessible from outside, but with a password or something. There's probably ways to do that as well.
The only way we would want to do that is through a VPN.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Is this still a teaser, or is this?
I don't know.
I'm really confused right now.
Joe's peppering me with questions, and he's
interested now. If you think this is interesting, just wait for the full.
Joe, you should just join Patreon, and then you would get the episode. You wouldn't have to wait.
True. Yeah. I'm sold. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we talk about a lot of interesting things on Patreon. I like to sometimes tease things we've recently talked about. I'm teasing this topic for some point in the future. We talk about things like the expense and time that went into, for example, my company growth over the years. And we talked about how I scaled up and scaled down and, what I have to show for it after the end of all that, and making a lot less money for many years, investing in the company and looking at that decision in retrospect. So that's just an example of the kind of thing that comes up on that show. I'm thinking along the lines of clientele aging out at a certain point. When you're 20 years in business, you think about your clients
that lately,
retiring. Right? Yeah. See, this is what's happening now. Again, we should talk more on Patreon about that because we could speak a little bit more freely, but it's a real question and concern. And is there a sweet spot of the type of clients that need to use technology and would like to be more proficient in it and can afford to have a tutor, can afford to have a technology integrator, a consultant of some sort? There's a Venn diagram there. And then there's people that grew up with iPhones and iPads, and it's maybe unmanaged, but maybe like they're managing fine themselves. And so there's different sort of, and we talk about this sort of thing. So if anybody out there listening to this public show is interested in these types of business operations topics, thinking big picture about our companies, thinking about, again, like our cost and time investments and what we have to show for it and all that. Here's one last example. We have clients that sometimes leave, right? You have attrition, clients go away. Sometimes they also come back. That's always really interesting. And so I have this topic about a client who goes away and comes back. And so it's all the kinds of things you can probably relate to if you're in this business like we are. And not only do we talk again about even more technology topics like Jerry brought up, but also the business practices and operations. And so that's our Patreon tease. Yeah.
For me, it's really my open area to discuss some sensitive client concerns, even though I don't name names, or we typically don't like to name names. It is something I don't feel comfortable with in the open air.
You get to hear all of Sam's juicy stories.
Yeah.
Sam's really close to the vest. I went to an Aces with him years ago because I think that was the last time I went to an Aces. No reflection on Aces. You should go every year.
Reflection on your travel.
I just prefer to hide underneath the coffee table. Like I would try to glance at Sam's screen and he would be very secretive. You can't really see much on his computers. Right. If you join Patreon, you're going to look inside Sam's kimono. I'm not sure you want to do that, but you could if you wanted to.
Yeah, Sam uses the privacy screen on his laptop. So the clearest view of Sam's screen you'll ever get is actually reflected in his glasses right now on the live recording.
Oh, no.
Sam, you need privacy glasses too. We don't want to see the whites of your eyes. Then otherwise I can see your
I'll just have to go blind for the show and take off my glasses.
Right, exactly. Oh man. So yeah, it was a good tease for Patreon. We do talk a lot more about all this stuff in more detail there. So we invite you all to join us there. We'd love to see you. It's where you can also help me decide on a new iPhone. Now I mentioned this recently. I'm still rocking the iPhone 16 Pro. I think at this point I'm just going to ride it out right into the sunset later this year with
Till the foldable.
iPhone 28 or whatever comes out. If it's a foldable, and that will definitely be a compelling reason to consider a new phone. The Air was tempting for a while just because of how light it is. I would love a light phone after all these years carrying these bricks around, but it's hard to trade off with the camera and stuff. And Sam, you were saying go Pro last time. So is that still your advice on if I had to pick today, you just iPhone 17 Pro, right? It has to be.
That's what I ended up getting. I don't always get every generation as well. I think I skipped the 16 if I recall correctly. But yeah, and we float them around in our family. So it's someone will get my old one and stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of new products, and I don't like dating the show often,
but you're going to do it.
If Apple was going to release a Mac Pro, they haven't done it yet as of this date. But I was thinking, I haven't bought a Mac Pro in years. I've been using MacBook Airs for the last, I think, 3 iterations, ever since the M series came out. But I can tell you that if they came out with a Mac Pro now with cellular service built in and maybe an OLED screen, that I don't care what it would cost, I would drop my MacBook Air here in a hot minute to get cellular connectivity built in.
You're like the guys from ATP there. I think Marco and Casey especially have been clamoring for a Mac with built-in cellular data for literally years now. I found it actually surprising because certainly in the past, maybe it wasn't as reliable iPhone personal hotspot connecting to your phone, to your Mac, whatever. But I think I forget if it's as of iOS 18 or 26. I think it might have been iOS 18. It seems to auto reconnect very reliably for me to the point where, like, I talk about my coffee shop lifestyle, right? I'll walk 3 blocks to get a coffee sometimes and sit and do work for a few hours. And I'll open my laptop in the coffee shop, and their Wi-Fi I've had trouble with from time to time, so I typically don't use it. I don't have it auto-join. So I open my laptop there, and it connects to my iPhone personal hotspot like it's ready to go when I open it, basically. So I haven't felt the need for that, but it's an interesting take, yeah.
I have a thought about that. My biggest issue with that, because it's not on the plan and it's using it as a hotspot, is my carrier will start to throttle me after a certain amount of data use. So that can't work for me on a longer scale for the month, let's say, if I wanted to. But if the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro had its own cellular plan that I paid X amount of dollars for, then I wouldn't have to worry about that.
Buy a MacBook Pro in a hot minute. If it came out, I would pre-order.
I have
tomorrow.
a MacBook Pro.
No, with cellular.
Pro, but with cellular, I don't. That to me wouldn't be that compelling. I would honestly downgrade to a MacBook Air if it had a 4 terabyte capacity option. I think.
How about an OLED screen? Does that do anything for you?
Yeah, maybe the screen.
Sure.
I like my screen is good with a nano texture. I don't complain about the screen, but yeah, sure.
4 terabytes. What the hell are you doing on there?
Oh, go back. Yeah, just do a search for storage on our site, and I'm sure you'll have plenty of material there. But no, it's
4 terabytes.
The thing that I used to praise the MacBook Air, I think it was the Pro 13-inch M1, that very first M1 model. Of course I bought it. I was overdue. I had the 15-inch PowerBooks G4. I forget what I had prior to that, but anyway, but no, that had to be a Mac. That was a MacBook
All
Pro.
the kids at Aces were making fun of you.
Oh, totally.
Time,
yeah. No, I was like and so that came out, all the benefits great, and I got 10 hours or more of battery life, like no problem with that machine. And then every model since then, I had the 15-inch MacBook Air after that, and I forget, it was probably an M2, I think, and it was pretty good battery life, not quite like that first one, but still very respectable battery life. And it's gone downhill even worse on my 14-inch MacBook Pro. Okay, it's got a fast processor, it's got a lot of RAM, it's got more storage, all that stuff's wired in and using battery in a sense. That's part of it. And again, the processor speed, I think, is really the thing that's killing my battery. But I'm just not impressed with the MacBook Pro 14-inch battery life at all. I get a solid 3 hours or something, but it's not 10. It's like Intel days. It's crazy. So yeah, anyway, that would be the other reason I would switch maybe back to the MacBook Air. And sure, if it has cellular, maybe I would opt into that just to have it, for Sam's point about having a dedicated plan on it. But
it's interesting that you only get that out of the Pro. That's the latest, the M4?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's still the latest. Was there a release in 2025 or I think this is a 2024 model. I don't think there was a release last year. So this is the current.
Well, they have a 14-inch M5.
Actually, that's a good point. And that one, to me, that base processor, it's M5, not Pro or Max. And I mentioned this before, that they now have the 4 terabyte option on that MacBook Pro with the M5.
Mm-hmm. You guys should get that.
I might get that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but
I love spending Joe's money.
$8,000. Yeah. Okay, so this all came up back on my list, this question of the iPhone. Again, probably I won't do anything until later this year when there's a new model, but I thought this was really interesting. These YouTubers that I've been following for a long time, they're called Gone with the Winds. Jerry, you probably remember when the movie came out, Gone with the Wind. No, I don't know. That's probably...
No, I wrote it.
Okay, yeah. No, but so their handle or whatever is called Gone with the Winds. They're Nikki and Jason Wynn is their last name. I don't know if they're related to the casino people, the Winds or whatever, but they've been traveling around. They were one of the inspirations for van life back in the day because they were originally living in a camper van and then a big RV, and then they moved into a sailboat. So they're very adventurous, and they have always... He's a videographer. They capture all the things they do, and they put it on YouTube. It's like their full-time job right now. It's been for probably 10 years. And they recently had some really professional camera gear stolen, and they went and did a full research of what would we buy if we were now replacing this camera today. And they decided to go with, are you ready for this? The iPhone 17 Pro. Same camera that Sam recommends. So I thought that was another very interesting vote in this. How do we justify, here I go, how do we justify dropping this $1,000+ purchase every year, whatever, every 2 years? First of all, the resale value on my old phone is still very high, so it's not going to cost me.
Here we go, Sam.
And also, it's a phone that you could literally be creative professional with. It's a
professional. That's
camera that you could be.
You know those cool commercials they do? Yeah.
It's
that could be you, Joe.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. I just clicked buy as we're waiting here. Thank you, guys. No, it's true.
Done, Jerry.
I'll get the foldable when it comes.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. But I'm surprised you said about Cellular, because I've thought a lot about that, and I would give it a chance again. And Sam, that point is annoying to me that the carriers can dictate, I need to buy hardware because of their onerous plan design. That's hotspot data. You can't, but what if it was its own dedicated device? I would use the same amount or more. What?
I know, that's frustrating. But
it shouldn't dictate my decision making, but
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you mind me shifting off of the phone, but just in terms of change and stuff like that, shift away. I did, on a personal level, I also made a change on my side, not with hardware, but with my mail client, which I know I've talked about a few different times.
Okay, wow.
So on the Mac, I have fully switched to Outlook for a while now for work. So I have Apple Mail for personal and Outlook for work. And that's been actually doing well for me because the reliability issues in Apple Mail have just been atrocious. So I just couldn't take it anymore. But I finally did it on my phone. That's what I wanted to just mention is I still had them both on my phone, which just was fine. I just had a unified mailbox and I could quickly see what was personal, what was not. I didn't have to go to one versus the other. But I found myself getting a little bit more, this was almost for mental health reasons, because I was getting more agitated or concerned every time that badge would show up in Apple Mail. I'm like, oh, is this work or is this personal? And so it was less about functionality for me. And it was more about just separating out my life a little bit more.
Yeah.
And moving to Outlook it's only been a week, but it really has helped, I think, for me to just be okay, I only have 2 messages for work, and that's not a big deal. Instead of I have 30 messages, and I don't know how many of those are possible work emergencies, we'll say, through Apple Mail.
Yeah, that's very interesting, though, the psychological part of that. Because, you train yourself to be, oh, God, red badge, Apple Mail might be bad.
No, it's because it would be mostly after hours and on the weekends when I see that, and I already had a tough day, let's say, when a lot of bad things happen, and I thought we cleaned it up. And then I see the badge show up. I'm like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do I do here? Is this going to be? And I almost don't want to open my mail. Oh, let's see what's underneath there. But so anyway, it's helped. I had to make some tweaks into how Outlook works and just to follow my method of how I see mail and things like that and delete mail instead of going to archive. But
and how about on your Mac?
Yeah, the Mac I've moved completely to Outlook for work.
So compartmentalizing makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I've gone there once or twice, Outlook on the phone.
Yeah.
It works really nicely because you're using Microsoft as your mail server. It's a little bit more seamless in that regard.
And then there has been the recent announcement, which I know we're probably not that worried about, but about how EWS is going to be going away. And that's currently what Apple Mail uses to get mail from Microsoft. So I think they have until it's being deprecated October 2026, and then early 2027 is when it'll stop functioning. So Apple has some time to fix that, but still, maybe that makes Apple Mail better, actually, if they go to the modern setup, and it'll be good. So yeah, here we go. Dwayne Moss talking about, would it bother you if you saw a badge with 17,000 messages like one of my customers? That's like my wife, Dwayne.
Yeah, same for me. Don't you love when the customer says, oh God, I'm so embarrassed. I have 17,000 messages in my inbox. And then you say, actually, that's only the number of unread messages. You actually have 42,000 total messages. And I should run away screaming right now because supporting you is going to be very difficult. You're lucky that this works at all. Yeah, I'll take the bait here and I'll defend Apple Mail, and then I'll probably bash it. But first, to defend it, I really like certain features of Apple Mail, and I don't think this is an Outlook. Of course, Outlook, I'm sure, has its own benefits that I'm not aware of, but smart mailboxes are pretty interesting, I would say. And I recently did a refresh of my management of this stuff. Like you guys, yeah, I've got my several personal accounts in there, which mostly are neglected, and then I've got my work one. And there's a lot of stuff even just coming into the work one. There's alerts about a network going down and coming back up. And it's okay, fine. It's just noise. As long as it came back up, it's just noise, right? A ticket was assigned to you. You got a new text message in your company inbox. You've got a new voicemail, all those kinds of things. Okay. Then you've got certain clients that you want to get to as a priority. They're bigger clients. They're higher expectations. They're on your highest level monthly plan or whatever it is. Okay, so what I do is I reapproach this, and I thought I need a way to quickly see some of the above. I want to quickly see just my voice messages and text messages, okay? Because that's probably more urgent mostly. So the way I achieved this was, again, using smart mailboxes. And with a smart mailbox, you list a series of conditions, right? And those conditions can be inclusive, or it can be any or all matching. So you can say, match any of these conditions or all of these conditions. So for example, the way that I would see all of my incoming text messages is I would say it's from B Texting, which is this company used for text messages, and it's in the mailbox, my inbox, right? So it's a message from my texting service and it's in my inbox. That's one example. That's for text messages. Now here's my example for voicemails, which come in by RingCentral. So here's the two matching conditions. It has to be in my inbox and it has to be from RingCentral. Match all those conditions. And then a third mailbox would be when I was using Smith AI for my answering service. So I have a mailbox for them as well. Then I have those three different smart mailboxes in what they call a smart mailbox folder. And that folder is how you do basically the or part of the and or logic. The folder, called voice and text in my case, contains those three smart mailboxes, which again collectively show me text, voicemails, and answering service messages.
Well, breaking news, Joe. Outlook can do this.
Okay, awesome. So you can do smart mailboxes, or how would you implement that kind of thing?
I think it's more like I see Kingsley is.
Yeah, Kingsley's saying
talking about.
It's a save
I think
search,
it's more like a saved search. Yeah, when you type in the search criteria, you have the option to save, and then you can click the little drop down to change the advanced features of your search. It's a similar concept. I don't know if it'll get you exactly what you want based on your hierarchy, but it does do that kind of concept.
Then I have my quote unquote systems monitoring smart mailbox folder where I have smart mailboxes in there. One is for Attrition alerts, Microsoft no reply. I forget why I put that in there. It's probably all the licensing emails I get on behalf of clients. Unified notifications, Watchman monitoring, and repair shop or system things, plus things that are sent to a shared address that Tim and I that we use in the company, payments that came in through Stripe when I was sleeping, my ticketing system like emails. So for me, it's helpful because I will come back after a call with a client and I'll want to see first, let me see my voicemails and text. Boom, there's my smart mailbox showing that stuff. So to me, I'm praising Apple Mail because I like the sort of design of these features and the concept of this method of dealing with email. everything from the all inboxes to like individual inboxes, how that works in Apple Mail. Now Outlook has the similar functionality there as well. So fine.
Fine.
Yeah, it's there. I could probably get it, and I would be a little bit annoyed in the same way that I'm a little annoyed whenever I have to open Excel because I prefer numbers. Numbers are just cleaner. The keyboard shortcuts work the way I want. Yeah, etc.
So I tried to do same thing that you did, Joe. I did create these smart mailboxes, and I found that they were getting lost for me.
Yeah, this
No?
is where I will join you in bashing Apple Mail. Yes.
And so all of a sudden I'd be like, oh man, how long has that been there? I had ones for key customers, and I would get an inquiry that I really need to respond to right away because I value them as a customer. And I'm like, oh man, I miss this.
Yeah.
So I took a lesser approach, and you're limited on the number of these that you could do. I'm just looking at my screen for a moment, but instead I have everything go to the inbox, and then I created flagged messages or flagged categories, and you can rename those flag categories. You don't have to call it blue, green, yellow. You could actually name it, like the Smith Company. So it comes in the inbox. I flag it. If I need to act on it, I leave it there. But if I need to just review it later, I just flag it and then get it out of the inbox, archive it away.
Okay.
And then I know that if I look at it.
Yeah, so you can look at flagged and you can see the things you want to.
Are you hearing that?
To. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Dr. Doolittle.
Wait for the bird. First the dog, then the bird.
Yeah, that's right. At least my mic is not Captain Crunch, but apparently it's DigiNoise instead. We've got the menagerie on Jerry's side. We got DigiNoise over here. Hey, listen,
Nothing
people out there, everybody listen. Yeah, Sam's perfect, of course. He's got the professional studio there. We're hobbyists, okay? Labor of love for 10, 15, 20, whatever many years we've been doing this. It's not a money-making endeavor. We're not professionals. And so you guys put up with our varying audio quality. We appreciate it. And we're happy to do this show for everybody out there. Jerry, the thing I thought you were going to say with getting lost in Apple Mail is, in my case, I created these smart mailboxes, and I was finding that for whatever reason, it doesn't always work. So I will go into the smart mailbox and I will see sometimes a message that is actually not in my inbox. It's in my archive, but it's showing in my smart mailbox, matching a criteria where the message has to be in my inbox. And then I'm like, okay, I already archived that 5 months ago. So what should I do here? I guess I move it back to the inbox and I archive it again, because I click archive again and it doesn't work. So I move it back into the inbox, and then I move it back to the archive. So come on, Spotlight, can you get the message here? So that's been my issue with Apple Mail. It's just like underlying database issues.
Yeah, that's of course like a huge part of my issues as well too. And Outlook isn't perfect with its searches, but because I like to try and do a quick search for two, and I don't know, I won't get into the minutia of it, but it's just a learning curve for me to sort of figure out the differences and then remember them as time goes on. But I am happy I made the change. But it's funny because it was different reasons. Like my computer was just, I was tired of Apple Mail screwing up. I was missing messages. And for my phone, it was just, I need a separation or else I'm going to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I'm happy I've been able to mostly function with Apple Mail with these. But yeah, and to Jerry's point, I wouldn't recommend filtering messages out of your inbox. I've done that before too. And certain things, if I want to stay subscribed to something, I might just by necessity have it filtered out of the inbox. Otherwise, it's just a pile of stuff every day. So there's subtle differences there. But this, in my case, it's leave it in the inbox, but I want to be able to see just a subset of the inbox at a glance. And it's good to know I can do that in Outlook now. I feel like they have come a long way. I just still feel disoriented when I open it because it's just not my day-to-day. To each their own. But that's a very interesting development, Sam, that you've moved away from there. I was wondering if you've had any experience using an iPad. You were talking about managing your work stuff and moving. How do you deal with stuff like Cellular and a Mac and dedicated devices? Have you guys ever tried to use an iPad as a day-to-day work device?
I went through an iPad phase, but it didn't stick. It just, I installed like some tools like for terminal things, and I connected to some, this was years ago, but I did some stuff that made it feel like more business or computer-like, but it didn't stick for me. I couldn't keep it.
I recently did a call as early as yesterday to help this woman straighten out her calendars and her Google Mail. And she had 2 iPads, an iPhone, and her Mac was there, but it was the 4th on the list. And so she had a larger iPad. And I haven't been on an iPad in a while. I was fumbling around. It was
Exactly. I know.
it was really awkward.
Right.
I just couldn't believe how, even though I use my iPhone every day, I thought I could do this. It's an iPad.
Right.
I was fumbling. It was bad.
That's pretty funny.
No, I can relate. So I had this client who asked me, they're going to be away for a week or two. They're spouses who work together and they have one laptop. And typically in the past, their workflow has been they trade off with a laptop when they travel. But they realized that this trip, they imagine they'll be working at the same time a lot of the time. And so they only have this one laptop, and how can we both be productive? And the laptop is needed as like for photo review and editing and just things like that with a big screen. So that's the laptop. So the second person, like the second workstation, could be an iPad. They ended up with an extra iPad Pro, and they thought, could we use this as an iPad as a workstation so that we can do email, web stuff, writing in Word, things like that. I'm like, yeah, these are all very straightforward uses. This sounds really functional to me. And why would I think that would be a problem? Let me take a look. So here's the first problem. For historical reasons, including the photo review and editing and things, the server is an on-premises Mac server. So that Mac is like hosting multiple screen sharing sessions, doing local login to shared storage, essentially a promise RAID, to open various photo libraries and work on photos and things. It's also running FileMaker Server. So there's the other benefit of having a Mac server. And then it's also doing file sharing. So file sharing is a big piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only function. And so it can't really easily replace this with Synology. So anyway, it's SMB file sharing, or cloud sharing is the other one, obviously. Dropbox or Box or something, OneDrive, whatever it is. Could we move these files to that? Sure, but we still need a server for these other functions. Anyway, the files right now are hosted by SMB on this Mac server, and the way you connect to that on an iPad is using the Files app. No problem. That should be reliable, and it has been. And to get in remotely, it's with a VPN, just like a laptop. So on the MacBook Air, they use a VPN to connect to the server. They use file sharing in the Finder. It works fine. The iPad, I thought, should work more or less the same. So you add the server in the Files app, and then you can go back and tap on that server in the future, and it reconnects, and you can browse your server. Great. So they've got a few locations where they typically would need to access files. So let's go ahead and mark these as favorites. Okay, that function is built into the Files app, but it doesn't work for SMB shares for some reason. So you can't favorite 5 levels deep in this server, which is the folder they actually care about. You just, I don't know.
That's annoying.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering could I have put that path into the connect to server like step so they could have, would that work potentially? I didn't really get that far.
Yeah, I seem to remember, this has been a while, but I seem to remember actually doing that as a solution for something like that. So I want to say yes, but it's been quite a bit of time for me.
And this is also the other wrinkle here is that this is an iPad Pro. Should be pretty cool. It's a first generation 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which is limited to iOS 16. We're now at iOS 26. Okay, that's not 10 versions newer, okay, as the name would imply, but it is 3 versions newer. So iOS 16 has certain other limitations as well. So this may have been solved, although I was testing with iPadOS 26 on my test iPad, and I couldn't favorite in the Files app on an SMB server. But yes, maybe I could add a server and specify the path and have that be a second entry on the main level there in Files. Fine. I posted about this on Slack somewhere saying, am I late to the party on realizing the iPad just doesn't really work well with SMB shares? Because the other thing is, it's just very clunky. At least with iOS 16, you'd go into the server in the Files app, you'd select the file. It's a Word document. To get it open in Word, you have to tap share and then share to Word. And then am I editing the original or copy? I have no idea. And in Word, you can go into browse for a file. So you can get into your Files app, browse, navigate, drill down again, and open. So then that's a little bit more clean. It's like opening from the server. When you save, it saves back to the server in the same place. That's cool. That's just like what I would expect. So I'm glad it works that way. But I found that creating a new file in Word on an iPad, it creates the file on OneDrive by default because that's Microsoft just really wants you to use that. They only enable autosave on OneDrive, right? Or something like, there's like limitations where you have to be using OneDrive. So fine, okay, I can play along. We create the file on OneDrive. Then the decision has to be made. This is here and it's convenient while I'm traveling and I know how to get there on my Mac, but this is not where we normally deal with files. So should I then choose the option to save as or save a copy, I think it is, and put it on the server, which is available still in the Files app, and then go back to OneDrive and delete that copy so I don't accidentally open that. It's just so clunky.
You use an application like Hazel, and on the server, just because you're saving it to OneDrive, to do a watch folder, and it would automatically copy it to the appropriate location.
Now you're getting a little too clever, I think. But yeah, I mean, that would work. And
you can make all kinds of rules depending on what kind of a document it was. Look for this thing.
I would say like at midnight every night, if the file is sitting here, take it out of OneDrive and put it in this place in the server, because I wouldn't want it to be like they create a file in OneDrive on their iPad and I'm editing, and where'd the file go? Hazel did the job I said, which was take it off of OneDrive and put it on the.
So you could copy. Yeah. You don't have to move.
Copy,
you could copy,
right? Yeah, but then they're on the iPad and they don't know which copy they open. I'd have to have instructions to open it, create it, close it
until they're ready to archive it. Let's say, or they're done. It always remains on OneDrive.
I have a better solution: MacBook Air. So that's the client. Their conclusion was like, oh boy,
with cellular and OLED screen.
Yeah, with cellular built in, and you can't go wrong.
Now you're pushing
an OLED screen. No, I want the new foldable MacBook Air. It's just close the lid.
It folds into force.
Yeah. So this is another thing. Here's the last little piece of this puzzle, right? Oh, sorry. Let's see here. Oh, web clips. Okay, interesting. So Dwayne is saying save a web clip to basically you put on the home.
Big fan.
Right?
Big fan.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So Sam, you've used this. How come you didn't tell me this?
Yeah, sorry. When he said it, I was, that's a great call out, because web clips, like people typically think of them just for URLs, but they do
exactly
like so many other links. That's a great call.
That is a great call. For some reason, I had thought of that, and I don't think I had the name. I didn't think of web clip, like that functionality. So that's something I think I can create, like an Attrition or whatever, and just deploy that. That is a great tip. Thank you, Dwayne. So like I said, the client's conclusion was, this is getting like worse by the second here. Because email's fine, web is fine. Like the device is great for basic things, but this editing workflow is too clunky. So maybe this web clip thing would take me right to this folder on the server, and then I open this document in Word. But if I want to create a new document, I have to remember this weird thing about OneDrive. It doesn't sound, I don't know. That just seems like a bad architectural decision. I guess.
And the thing with the iPad is,
but yeah.
What's the payoff? To what end?
They already have the iPad. That was the main reason we were trying.
It's a first gen. It, like you said, it can't be updated. We can't do that.
Point where it was like, no, exactly. And so, so then we found there's a keyboard you can still get from Apple.
I've got an iPad here, and they open up a desk and they're pulling out old, and I'm like, no, we're trying to solve this problem for you. Yeah,
the screen's never been cleaned, or it's just how about like an opaque,
or you're on site, Sam, and you're trying to do a connection, and they start opening their drawer with all these cables from 15 and 20 years ago, showing you like a FireWire 400. How about this?
I have this UBS cable. Will this do the job?
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. So we basically got to that conclusion. I spent about an hour on my test device getting the workflow set up so I could walk them through it remotely. I'm going to get you enrolled in MDM management, deploy a configuration profile for VPN, walk you through adding the server to your Files app. We did all the basic setup and stuff. Then we get stuck with FileMaker because, again, they have a locally hosted FileMaker server on premises running the latest FileMaker. The iPad won't run the latest FileMaker. No problem. FileMaker 2023, 2024, these older FileMaker Go for the iPad, those are still available in the App Store. Great. You get the 2023. That one runs on the iOS 16. Okay, perfect. It's installed. You open it up, add the server, no problem. And you get a message that the server won't accept a connection from the older version of FileMaker. So maybe I could adjust that. Do I really want to? I don't know if it's even possible. So that's out. So we're just going down the list of this, especially because of the version. Now, I tested FileMaker on the latest and it was great. So it's not to say you can't use the iPad for FileMaker. It's just that you better have a current device. So
this is what Apple does. They update their software, so you have to buy a new piece of equipment.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're not always wrong about that, but this is an older device, frankly. So
I think this is where Jerry and I both would have said no to this.
No, yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. I think the client regretted even spending any time on it because ultimately it was like, I can make it work for email and basic use, and I'm probably not going to buy a laptop for the once or twice a year where we need this to both be working, but this is not that viable. So she bought a stand.
Can I interject for one moment here? You're not on-prem for this client.
I was remotely walking through this,
on an iPad.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I just talked her through it. So I saved myself the effort of the VPN. So I walked her through enrolling in MDM. So here's a QR code. She scanned it, enrolled the profile.
That's okay.
From there, I had already created the VPN profile minus the password. So I deployed that to the device. Great. VPN shows up. Go to there and edit the VPN connection. Now you can paste in your password. And then, so I helped her copy and paste and whatever and get that.
So that's pretty tedious.
It wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. The worst part was the files, like some of the guesswork of this is an older version than what I have for reference in front of me. It was certainly an issue. And then again, it's an iPad, but what about a keyboard? Apple made a keyboard stand. You can still get it. I think it was a smart keyboard for that vintage. And it's $50. Not a big deal. You've already got the iPad. She didn't really like that keyboard style. Wants to use just a standard Apple Magic keyboard. So now do you get a separate stand or do you get a cover that makes it into a stand? Do you invest more in this or not? Anyway, she did get the keyboard. You just put it in and it works. The smart keyboard, there's like a little smart connector. So that part was easy. She paired the mouse. She had a mouse. I walked her through. I told her where to go and she did it on her own later. And that went well. Different things like that. Totally fine. And then she had a question. She said, can I see more apps all at once? And you can see where that question's coming from. That's the Mac. This is a Mac native person that's now trying an iPad for the first time. It's got this big screen. It's got this keyboard. It's got a mouse. It works the way I'd expect. What about multiple windows? So let me Google that because I don't know. So I go to Apple's and I'm like, okay, I know there's a recent thing with multiple windows, but when did that start and whatever? So you go to their support page on it and it's literally called work with multiple windows in your iPad, something like that. And of course they default to the latest, which is, you can do that. Multiple windows is built into iOS or iPadOS 26. It says set up iPad to work with multiple windows at once. It's in multitasking and gestures and settings, and then you choose windowed apps. That's what they call it, windowed apps. Then you also have Stage Manager still available. The default, of course, back in the day was just full screen apps. So I explained this to the client that iOS 16 has this feature called split view. So you can have two up.
Yeah.
So this is all just, can it do this? Not exactly, not quite. Can it do this? Well, yeah, but you've got to tap share and then tap share again and then go over here. And then just remember if you put, then it's over. It's just, this is really the state of the art. And okay, granted, it's not because it's iOS 16, but it illustrates the point to me that it's just not a Mac. And in this example, it would have been better to put my time into the cost of the price of a Mac. That would have just been a really simple, straightforward second workstation. There you go.
She regretted it a little bit because of the time and effort. You were kind enough to help her there, but as you said, she would have been best served putting that money towards new hardware potentially.
Yeah, mostly because of that word editing workflow and the limitation that I didn't foresee, which is the old version of FileMaker being required on the old iPad and not connecting to the new server. With those two things solved, maybe this would be viable. Certainly, I would think it's worth a try for this once or twice a year where you just need a second workstation. Do email, do web, maybe do a little bit of writing. If you're talking about editing marketing copy, do it in the Notes app for that matter, or Pages, and just make a new just treat it as a one-off thing and don't worry too much about workflow, basically. That would be the kind of middle ground I think that could work in this case. But the main thing was I was just surprised about accessing files on the server. That just never was addressed very cleverly as far as I could tell. It's cloud. The cloud is great. Use that. Use OneDrive if you're using Microsoft. Quickly on Microsoft 365, I've been having some login issues. I just want to throw this out there while we're still in this show. In two different cases on two different devices, one on a Mac running 26.2 Tahoe and the other one on an iPhone running 26.2. Configuring the native apps using internet accounts preference in the case of the Mac or email accounts on iOS. There's a Microsoft 365 hosted email account that stops working properly. In one case, stopped sending and receiving email, just showed a little offline symbol in Mail. In the other case, the calendar wasn't syncing. any events, in the case of the iPhone. In both cases, though, they both needed password re-entered. You walk the client through, in the case of the phone, settings, apps, mail accounts, everybody say it with me. Tap on the account and then it says re-enter do you see a thing of re-enter password? Oh, I do. Okay, re-enter password. So cool. You should be prompted to put in the password. Sometimes they're tripped up because there's no keyboard and I say let it autofill or look for the little keyboard symbol and then you can, if you have to, you can type your password. In this case, they got to the screen where it shows their email address and they continue, or maybe it filled in, and they get to the password prompt, but it doesn't let them type anything in. It goes away. So I'm like, what? Are you sure? I'm figuring they must have auto-filled it or something. So then I got connected using the iPhone mirroring and I could see exactly what they're describing, which is exactly as they described it. You go to the screen after entering the email address, you get to the screen that asks for the password. It does not ask for the password. It proceeds to authenticate and it shows the mail, contacts, calendars, all the little on-off switches, just what you'd expect if you did authenticate. And you can tap save or done, I forget. But it looks like it wasn't actually authenticated because it didn't actually work. So I went through that workflow a few times, very confusing. The weirdest part was, so then I'm like, obviously just remove the account, try again. So I remove the account, try again, same result. That's weird. Remove the account, restart the device, and then try again. Because sometimes I've had to do that as definitive, restart the device and then try re-adding the account. Same exact result. It goes to that screen, it's like already authenticated. I've never seen anything like it. It's very strange. Yeah, it seems like a total iOS 26 bug or just 26 OS bug.
This is on a hosted domain through Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly. Client, domain name.
So there are occasions where you have to go into as the admin to Microsoft, and Sam probably has done this before, and you reset their credentials. That might
try that. Yeah, MFA. Mike Kingsley is asking, is it a passkey? That's a great guess. I'm pretty sure I tested in both cases. There's no passkey set up. So either way, if it was, it should show a screen that says, would you like to use your passkey?
Yeah.
Do you have MFA mandatory?
For this cases, I'm pretty sure it's mandatory.
Yeah, I would definitely try that. Just reset all the...
Wipe it out.
Not wipe it, just reset the security credentials. There's a place you can do that
in the per user MFA screen or whatever. You just reset their MFA methods, and then I would even just probably change their password, like for good measure or something, and just see. Yeah. So the weird thing was in the iOS case, that's weird enough, but the last weirdness was in the iOS case. I got to that screen where it shows the on-off switches. At one point, when I tapped done, it said, oh, I had gone back and then forward again because I'm like, what did I miss there? That's weird. And when I went back and forward again, I'm like, all right, I'm on the screen that has the check button or the on-off switches. I'll just save the account. So I went to save it and it said this account already exists. You can't add it again. And I'm like, that's weird. I removed it and I restarted the device. Yeah. This makes no sense. So then I canceled that and it was indeed listed there. Like it was already there, just like it said it was. And then it worked.
What?
So I'm baffled at the end of all of that.
Wow.
None of that makes any sense. The only thing I can connect it to, because it seems like a bug, but there's a feature where it used to say, and I don't know if this is still supported by Apple or if there's a legacy thing where like this might still be in there, but in some cases you're prompted when you go to internet accounts on the Mac, it's, do you want to add an account that exists on these other devices?
Yeah.
Oh, how convenient. Okay, sure. Maybe that's coming into play here. Like it knows this once existed on this device or exists on other devices and it's...
Yeah, there's some kind of cached information or something. I have a good solution. Just use Outlook.
That was the solution. Okay. So in the other case on the Mac, it was the same result. You get to that screen, you're never prompted for the password, and yet it's authenticated internet accounts. You leave internet accounts, you go back in, you know how it will tell you like, it'll jump up with the screen. You have to re-authenticate. That wasn't happening. Like internet accounts was like, you're authenticated, buddy. You're fine. Okay. So then you go to mail and it's like offline. So I give up. I can't get mail. I've removed it. I've removed the account. I've restarted. I've tried re-adding it, like all the normal machinations, as Jerry would say. And I gave up and we went to Outlook and it worked fine. There you go. Yeah. So it's literally our solution in that case. And I said, this is probably a bug. Let's, if you want to go back to mail, because he has 3 other accounts in mail, let's wait a week or 2 and try it again. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a tough situation because they look at you and it's almost like you've admitted failure, like something you did. Oh, You're going to have to use Outlook for a while. They don't. Yeah.
That's a workaround. That's the worst. That's not an answer. A workaround is, oh, you don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I get that. I know that feeling all too well.
A workaround. Oh, so it's just broken, huh? You just can't. You
maybe you don't have the experience to do this.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this work?
No, you know what I love in my case? Then there maybe Tim has to come here.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts.
I'm like sometimes I hear myself and I'm like he's gonna see the same thing. I'm settle down. Yeah,
that's a pride killer right there.
Yeah, Tim has to come here. Oh, you're way out there and you don't know. You don't know, and you can't even come here if you wanted to.
News travels very slowly to Colorado. You probably don't know this stuff,
right? I haven't.
Tim knows.
Out west,
you don't know.
We've all been skiing. No, yeah, that's a weird one. If anybody out there has seen it, I'd be really curious. Sam, did you have a way to wrap us up here as we're just past the hour?
Oh, I just noticed the time. It wasn't really meant to be a wrap up, but since you were talking about older equipment and things like that, I had something somewhat similar. My neighbor, who I love my neighbors, that he's an electrician and he's helped me out with some stuff, and I help him out with computers. And his daughter, who's moved out, she had a 10-year-old MacBook Pro, heavy.
Oh yeah.
And basically she was saying, I can't log into certain websites anymore. And I'm like, I'm like, it's 10 years old. I'm like, it's time. And they're like, is there anything you can do? I'm like, I'll be honest with you, probably no. And you should invest in a new one. And she's starting out in her life and her professional career. That's a chunk of change for someone to put out there.
Yeah.
But it's tough. Sure, I'll look at it, but what am I going to do? Clear out some cache? And it's not going to. Yeah. So I ended up actually helping in some way. I ended up installing, because none of that Google Chrome wouldn't install because it's High Sierra. Safari, of course, is integrated with the OS, so it's not going to upgrade. And so websites won't work there. And I found Firefox had their ESR, extended support release, or ER, I can't remember, and that was able to be installed on a much older operating system, and it worked. Like it allowed them to get to websites through this browser that allowed for extended support. So maybe I get them another year. I don't know. But it was interesting just working on this old clunker of a 10-year-old. Yeah. And heavy as anything too, man.
Yeah,
those things were heavy.
No battery life, even on a good day. But Jerry, would you say run what are they, patchers to be like forcibly install Sequoia or something like that? Like
no, I bet you could put Linux on that though, Sam, and it would be fine.
Yeah. Chrome OS, honestly, Chrome. I think you could turn into a Chromebook. I feel like for a while.
Okay.
Something about that. Yeah, either one though. Chrome might be better supported just if you want literally just web stuff. This you bring up an interesting point, Sam, because you say like 10 years. And I mean, on the one hand, it sounds old, certainly by today's standards, but also
it was slow as hell. But
that's true. A lot of times they do slow down, but clients will ask me this all the time because the hardware is still working and it looks fine. Yeah, it's clunky, it's bigger, whatever, but the hardware, the specs, the screen is nice. Some of the features, it should still work. What's the problem with it? The lack of software support. So how are we guiding clients now in this new era still of Apple Silicon? Do we know how long these computers will last? We're starting to know. The M1 came out in 2020, right? So the very first generation MacBook Pro M1, 13-inch, came out in 2020 and will still run today's latest OS, Tahoe. And Tahoe should be supported, so it's 2026. It should be supported through 2028, I think, based on it was released in 2025, and it will get 3 years from it. When it's 3 years old, then it will stop being supported in that range. It basically seems like 2028 is when Tahoe will stop being supported. So if the M1 Macs run macOS 27 this year, then you can add another year onto that, right? So basically, Mike, my math is it came out in 2020, and it should be viable until at the very least 2028, based on if it only ever runs Tahoe. So that's 8 years, which is actually pretty typical. That's the maximum kind of lifespan. If you buy the 2020 Mac in 2020, you'll get 8 years of use out of it supported by Apple, which is typically the metric. So you could also infer that maybe those Macs, those M1s, may not run this year's Mac OS. Do you think that's possible? Because they still run so well. Like, why would you drop support? But based on Apple's like 8-year-ish timeframe, they may not need to support 27.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. And just to your point about how long they can last if they're still working, in this case, that 10-year-old computer still had spinning disks. But what you're talking about actually makes a little bit more sense, because now you have a solid state, and that could extend that lifespan a bit farther, except if the OS stops being supported.
better battery technology. It's all Apple up and down the chain. So it's okay if Apple can't get more than 8 years out of it. I agree. It's got better specs. And so you would think it should last at least as long as an Intel of this. Intel machines lasted 8 years, was a pretty good run. There were 10-year-old machines in use that maybe were just out of software support, in some cases. But I wouldn't recommend it. In business, I think I still say pretty much, I go back and forth between saying like 3 to 5 years if it's like a heavy use, high productivity position, like 3 to 5 is, but residential use 5 to 7 years is a good range still.
Yeah.
And you also say Macs are for the home and PCs are for business.
That's still true, isn't it?
That's right.
Let's end on that note.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to Command Control Power. To find out more, visit us at commandcontrolpower.com and pledge your support on Patreon for more great content behind the scenes. And thanks, everybody, once again for listening.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't blow. Have you tried restarting? But my data is gone. Have you tried restarting? I dropped it